Hello, I'm Micker410 and welcome to my channel where I focus on 3-inch revolvers and firearms chambered in the 410 bore shot shell. Let's check out today's video. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. In today's video, we're going to explore how much barrel length matters for the 32 H&R Magnum cartridge. This is a cartridge that was primarily designed to be shot out of small, snubby revolvers in the early 1980s. And pretty much only exists in the realm of 2 to 4 inch barrels. In today's testing, we're going to extend that up to 12 inches using a Chisel 12-inch rifled 327 barrel insert for a 410 shotgun. We will be using our 410 double barrel Stoeger shotgun to do that. We will be shooting for our snubby Smith & Wesson 432 Ultimate Carry with a 1.875 inch barrel. For our 3-inch barrel, we'll be using the Charter Arms Professional. And for our 5-inch barrel, we will be using our Ruger GP100. And lastly, for our 16-inch barrel, we will be using our Henry 16-inch carbine. I'm not certain what kind of a velocity pickup we'll get with 32 H&R Magnum because of its designed goals of being pretty much a 4-inch or smaller barrel load. And I don't know if it will be like a more traditional autoloader pistol cartridge, like 9mm or 45 ACP, where it only picks up a couple hundred feet of velocity out of the longer barrels, or if it'll be more like 327 Federal Magnum, 357 Magnum, and 44 Magnum, where it picks up several hundred feet in velocity out of longer barrels. I have a feeling it'll be closer to the latter, or to the former than the latter. So we'll just have to find out. And the 3 loads that we'll be testing today are our Ventura Heritage 118 grain round nose flat point loading, which is very heavy for caliber. The caliber usually caps out at about 100 grains and is quite common in the 80 to 95 grain range. Then we'll be doing our Federal Champion lead Semi-Wadcutter 95 grain load, which is probably the most common loading to find on shelves. That's not a self-defense loading. This is probably what most people are using for target practice with 32 H&R Magnum, if they're not using a 32 Smith & Wesson long alternative. And then we have, up until very recently, the most common self-defense cartridge, the Hornady Critical Defense 80 grain with an FTX bullet in it. And so this is the one that I think that I'm least sure about for how much velocity it will pick up, because this is specifically designed for self-defense out of snubbies. All right, so if you guys will give me a moment, I'll bring the camera in and give you a close-up of the ammunition and a close-up view of the firearms, and then we'll get started on our velocity testing. Just a moment. And here is our ammunition close-up. We have the Ventura Heritage 118 grain round nose flat point, the Federal Champion lead Semi-Wadcutter 95 grain, and our Hornady Critical Defense 80 grain FTX bullet hollow point. So, I mean, not really a hollow point, but it's supposed to expand like one. And then again, for our firearms, we have the Smith & Wesson 432 Ultimate Carry, the Charter Arms Professional, the Ruger GP100, the Stoeger side-by-side coach gun in 410 with the Chesil 12-inch 327 Federal Magnum insert adapter, and the Henry 16-inch lever action carbine. All right, I'll get everything set up for velocity testing in just a moment. Okay, everyone, we're at 15 yards, which is a little bit further than normal for our testing from the targets, but it doesn't really affect velocity testing. We're starting off with the Ventura, 118 grain round nose flat point with the Smith & Wesson 432 Ultimate Carry. Let's see what kind of numbers we get. .880, very nice, very mild. .849 and .870 for an average of .866.8. Okay, we are changing it up to the Charter Arms Professional. .950, .949, and 1,000.4. Yep, and because of the way I staggered these guys in here, I accidentally missed one of our 32 H&R Magnums and instead shot, or I missed one of our Venturas and instead shot one of our Federals. So that 1,004, we'll have to remove that from its count. Let's get the Federal guy replacement in there. This is what happens when you're using a 7-shooter. All right, let's do the third shot of the Ventura. That 1,004.5 was from the Federal. 968.2. Okay, that's more consistent and makes sense. All right, so our average is going to be a little bit lower than 968.8. I'll adjust that in the actual footage. Still, it was a nice improvement. We got about 100 feet per second on average increase in barrel length from 1.8 inches to 3 inches. So I think that's probably significant if you're trying to make that decision on if you want to carry a 2-inch or just under 2-inch barrel, or if you want to carry a 3-inch barrel. All right, now we're on our Ruger GP100. Yeah. This is another 7-shooter, and I was just double checking to make sure I understood which way the cylinder rotated on this guy. All right, here we go. First shot. 935.2, second shot, 910.5, and third shot, 910.7, for an average of 918.8. While that was a little bit lower than what we'd get out of the Charter Arms, it was much smoother, and the recoil was less by a significant amount, because it's such a heavy pistol. I believe that's about 44 ounces compared to the 22-ish ounces of the Charter Arms Professional. Yeah, these guys are just moving all around. I'm going to take them out of sight. Okay, time to see what kind of velocity pickup we get out of these 12-inch barrels, or I should say 12-inch adapters. Out of the Stoeger. Ooh, 1,081.1. Wow, not nearly the amount of pickup I was thinking we might get. And 1100. I mean, there is some pickup, but not a ton there. Let's see what we get out of our third shot. Wrong barrel. There we go. 1120. Not bad. I mean, honestly, 118 grains going at 1100 feet per second. That'll take care of all sorts of small game and varmints. Very mild. Very quiet. Yeah, hell, fun for plinking. You know, I really like those adapters. I think they're great. They do a really good job with the 32 H&R Magnum and the 327 Magnum. They're a lot of fun and a very cheap way to get access to long barrel performance out of those two cartridges. All right, now we're going to load up the Henry. See how it does. 1089.7, 1096.9, and 1075.7 for an average of 1087.5. Okay, folks, now we're doing the Federal lead semi-wadcutters, 95 grains. Let's see what the difference is in performance here, in velocity. I would expect these to be faster because, like I said, that Ventura Heritage round nose flat point at 118 grains is very heavy for caliber. And none of the recoil on it was bad at all. And the accuracy was quite nice out of both the Henry and the Stoeger for being long barrel. All right, 897.5 with the Smith & Wesson, 873.9, and 880.5 for an average of 884. So they're going about 20 feet per second faster. All right, now we've got the Charter Arms loaded up. Let's see how it does. The Smith & Wesson got about 20 feet per second faster. Let's see if this Federal 95 grain goes faster out of the Charter Arms than the Ventura did, and if so, by how much. 982.6. I shot way to the left on that one, guys. 970. And 1031.3 for an average of 994.6. So yeah, about 100 feet per second faster out of the Charter Arms than out of the Smith & Wesson 432. Let's see how it does out of the Ruger. Again, this is the Ruger with the Federal 95 grain. 949.8, 946.4, and 964.8 for an average of 953.7. So the performance, velocity-wise, is a little bit worse than out of the Charter Arms Professional. But the revolver is that much better. It's more accurate and the trigger is smoother. Okay, time to see how the Federal 95 grain lead semi-wadcutter performs out of the Stoeger 410 side-by-side coach gun loaded with two Chesil 12-inch 327 Federal Magnum rifled barrel inserts. 1246.1, that's a lot zippier than I thought it would be, but I felt almost none of that in the recoil. And 1291.6 for our second shot. And for our third shot, 1252.6 for an average of 1263.4. That 1263.4 is a little bit more than 250 feet per second improvement, and quite potentially worth it, I think, especially for the accuracy and the ease of shooting. The recoil is so negligible that is a delight to shoot. Okay, we're all set for the Henry. The Henry is always a pleasure to shoot the .32 caliber family out of. 1282.3, 1233.5, and 1236.9 for an average of 1250.9. So a little bit lower than the Stoeger, but not enough to say that I would prefer using the Stoeger over the Henry. The Henry is just phenomenal in performance all around. Okay, folks, we've got the Hornady Critical Defense 80 grains loaded up in the Smith & Wesson 432. Let's see what kind of velocity we get out of this guy. We've only got a 1.875 inch barrel. 995.8. That's nice. 923.5 and 959.0 for an average of 959.4. That's the kind of velocity you want to see out of a snub nose like that. Since expansion is velocity dependent, having that lighter weight that allows you to get that just under 1,000 foot velocity should really help you get the expansion you would need in a self-defense situation. Let's see if we can get higher numbers than that with the Charter Arms Professional with the 3-inch barrel. 1005, 1006, and 1024.4 for an average of 1012. .1. All right, so here's the big question. How well is the Hornady Critical Defense going to perform out of the Ruger GP100 with the 5-inch barrel? If you're carrying this much revolver, you really want to maximize the performance you're getting out of such a light caliber. Otherwise, you may be better off in a similar size revolver with 7 rounds, also of 38 Special or 357 Magnum. So let's see what kind of performance we get, if we get any improvement over the Professional. I know that whatever we get, the recoil is just going to be exceptionally mild. 1007, 984.2, and 987.3 for an average of 993.0. Yeah, you know, I really kind of think that this GP100 is best served with the 327 Federal Magnum. Yeah, you don't really feel the 32 H&R out of it, but you barely feel the 32 H&R out of the Professional. So if you're going to carry that much gun, you might as well bump it up to that 327 Federal Magnum level. All right, speaking of bumping up, let's see what we get out of the Henry carbine with 16-inch barrel on the Hornady Critical Defense 80 grain. 1176.5, 1122.5, and 1118.9 for an average of 1139.3. And yeah, that is a little bit slower. Oh, I did those out of order, everybody. I shot the Henry before I shot the Stoeger. And that just lets you go, or let you know how much I enjoy shooting that Henry. It's super accurate. It's super light. The lever action is always a delight. It loads the 32 H&Rs, no problem. It's just a great gun. All right, time to find out how the Critical Defense Hornady 80 grain FTX slug does out of the Stoeger 410 with the Chisel 12-inch rifled inserts. 1291.3 and 1339.0. All right, well, those are the fastest we've seen out of the 32 H&R Magnum. Time to see what the last shot of the day gets us. 1325.2 for an average of 1318.5. All right, everybody. Well, I really enjoyed shooting all those. I hope you guys enjoyed the testing. Our range is basically 500-ish feet per second, depending. The lowest velocity, highest weight was at the low end, 866. At the high end, 1087. All the way up to, and that was the Ventura 118 grain, all the way over to the 80 grain Hornady Defense, Critical Defense, from 959 up to 1139.3. So every one of these got about 200 feet per second variation along the barrel length. Not nearly as much as you would see out of the 327 Federal Magnum. This performance was much more in line with what you would see out of 9mm or 38 Special when going from a short barrel to a long barrel. Okay, folks, I enjoyed that video. I hope you did as well, and I hope you'll join me for the next one. Have a good day.